I stood in the parking lot of Belmore Country Club, watching the valet park BMWs and Mercedes, and I knew I should have worn the navy suit. But the gray one was comfortable, broken in from years of Sunday services and retirement dinners. It was clean. It was respectful. And it was mine. I didn't know then that my son Richard would pull me aside 30 minutes later and say, "Dad, don't make this about you again." I didn't know I'd spend the next hour sitting in my truck, hands shaking, staring at the check I'd written that morning. $75,000. The final payment on a promise I'd made to my grandson Daniel 4 years ago, when he'd gotten into Cornell. I should have known something was wrong when Richard insisted on hosting the graduation party here instead of at his house. "Daniel deserves something special," he'd said on the phone. "Somewhere nice. You understand, right, Dad?" I understood. I always understood. That was the problem. The club's entrance had marble columns. Real marble, not the fake stuff they use in subdivisions. I'd worked construction for 37 years before I made foreman, then site supervisor, then finally project manager. I knew marble when I saw it. I also knew what it cost, and I wondered how Richard was affording this on a financial advisor's salary, especially after his divorce last year. Daniel met me at the door, 22 years old, wearing his cap and gown over a pressed shirt and tie. My grandson, the first Morrison to graduate from an Ivy League school. "Grandpa!" He hugged me, and for a moment, everything felt right. "I'm so glad you made it. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Danny." I handed him a card. Inside was the check, along with a note I'd written the night before. I'd rewritten it 4 times, trying to get the words right. "This is the last one. You're officially debt-free." He looked confused. "Last one? The final payment. For Cornell. 4 years. Like we agreed." Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Confusion? Before I could ask, Richard appeared at my elbow. "Dad, you made it." He looked me up and down, and I saw it. That little tightening around his eyes. Disappointment. "Come on. Let me introduce you to some people." The party was already in full swing. 50, maybe 60 people, all dressed like they'd stepped out of a catalog. The women wore cocktail dresses. The men wore suits that probably cost more than my truck payment. A string quartet played in the corner. Waiters carried trays of champagne in actual crystal glasses. I thought about my own college graduation, community college, night classes while I worked days pouring concrete. My father hadn't come, said he didn't see the point in celebrating something that should have been done 4 years earlier. I'd promised myself then that if I ever had kids, if they ever achieved something, I'd be there, front row, cheering louder than anyone. Richard guided me through the crowd, introducing me with that tight smile. "This is my father, Robert. Bob. He's retired now." "Never. This is my dad. He put himself through school working construction." "Never. He started as a day laborer and worked his way up to managing million-dollar projects. Just retired. Like I'd spent my life doing nothing worth mentioning." Then we reached them. The Ashfords. Daniel's girlfriend, Emma's parents. I'd heard about them. Lawyers, both of them. Partners at some firm in Manhattan. "Robert, this is Charles and Patricia Ashford." Richard's voice had changed, gotten smoother, like he was selling them something. "Their daughter Emma has been dating Daniel for 2 years now." Charles Ashford had the handshake of a man who'd never done manual labor. Soft hands, strong grip though, trying to prove something. "Pleasure," he said. "Richard tells us you're retired?" "That's right. Spent most of my life in construction. Project management, mostly. The last 20 years. Construction." Patricia Ashford smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "How?" "Practical." Richard laughed. Too loud. "Dad's very practical. Old school, you know. Worked his way up from nothing. There it was. From nothing. Like where I came from was something to apologize for." "Well, someone has to build the buildings," Charles said, already looking past me to someone more interesting. I felt Richard's hand on my elbow, steering me away. We ended up in a corner, near the French doors that led to the terrace. "Dad, listen." His voice was low, urgent. "The Ashfords are very important people. Charles might bring his investment portfolio to my firm. So I need you to just, I don't know, maybe don't mention the construction thing too much? They're not really that crowd. I stared at my son. 42 years old. I'd put him through state college, helped with his wedding, loaned him money for his first car, his first house. When his marriage fell apart, I'd listened to him cry at 2 in the morning, told him it would be okay, that he was strong enough to get through it. What crowd am I, Richard? Dad, don't do this. Don't make this about you. This is Daniel's day. I'm not making it about anything. I'm just standing here. You know what I mean. Look, the Ashfords come from old money, real money. They summer in the Hamptons. They winter in Aspen. They're not going to understand. Understand what? That I worked for a living? Richard's jaw tightened. I'm asking you to be considerate. That's all. Blend in? Try not to draw attention? I looked around the room, at the ice sculptures, at the caviar station, at the champagne tower that probably cost more than my first car. How much is this party costing you, son? That's not your concern. Daniel told me last month you were struggling with the divorce settlement. Said you might have to sell the house. I'm handling it. By throwing a party at a country club? By making the right connections. Richard's voice rose slightly, then dropped. The Ashfords could change everything for me. Charles Ashford manages a $50 million portfolio. If I can get him to move that to my firm, I'm looking at partnership. Do you understand what that means? I understood. I understood that my son was drowning, and instead of asking for help, he was throwing money he didn't have at people who didn't care about him. Did you tell Daniel I was paying for Cornell? Richard's face went blank. What? Daniel seemed surprised when I mentioned the final payment. Like he didn't know. Dad, I don't know what you're talking about, but I saw it. The flash of something in his eyes. Guilt. Panic. You told him you paid for it, didn't you? You told him, and you told the Ashfords, that you sent your son to Cornell. I never said. You let them believe it. Richard looked away. It's complicated. It's not complicated. It's a lie. You don't understand the world I'm in, Dad. Image matters. Reputation matters. If people know I couldn't afford to send my own son to college, if they know I needed my father to, he stopped. But the words hung there anyway. Needed my father to what? To bail him out? To make up for his failures? I'm proud I could help Daniel, I said quietly. I wanted to help. You never had to lie about it. I didn't lie. I just didn't correct certain assumptions. From across the room, I heard Daniel laugh. He was with Emma, showing her friends his diploma. He looked happy, successful, like the future was bright and full of promise. Does Daniel know? I asked. Richard didn't answer. Does your son know that his grandfather paid $75,000 for his education? It's not about the money, Dad. Then what's it about? It's about respect. About being taken seriously. The Ashfords aren't going to respect some guy whose father had to pay for everything. Some guy. My grandson. The first Morrison to graduate from Cornell. Reduced to some guy. I pulled the card out of my jacket pocket. The one I'd given Daniel. I need that back. What? Why? Because I don't think Daniel knows what it is. And I think you've been lying to him about more than just who paid for school. Richard's face flushed. You're making a scene. I'm standing here talking to my son. You're embarrassing me. Again. Like it was a pattern. Like I had a history of showing up and ruining things just by existing. When have I embarrassed you before, Richard? You really want to do this now? Here? Yes. I do. When? He exhaled sharply. Your 60th birthday party. You told that story about the time you fell off a scaffold in front of my boss. You laughed at that story. I was being polite. My boss thought you were a clumsy idiot. At my retirement dinner, you introduced me as a working man like it was an apology. I was being respectful. At Daniel's high school graduation, you asked me not to wear my union jacket because it had a stain on it. It was a small stain, from where I'd knelt in the rain to help Mrs. Patterson from next door change her tire. I was proud of that jacket. 37 years in the International Union of Operating Engineers. Dad, please. Richard's voice cracked. Please don't do this. Not today. Just let Daniel have his day without making it about blue-collar this and working-class that. The world has changed. People like the Ashfords, they don't care about union jackets and hard work stories. They care about results. About who you know. About what you can offer them. I looked at my son, and I barely recognized him. When had this happened? When had Richard become someone who was ashamed of where he came from? Or maybe he'd always been like this, and I'd been too busy working to notice. I'm going to go, I said. Relief flooded Richard's face. Okay. Yeah. Maybe that's best. You look tired anyway. I'm going to go talk to Daniel. Get that card back. Dad, don't. Please. He doesn't need to know about the money. He has a right to know who paid for his education. Why? So you can throw it in his face? Make him feel indebted to you? The words hit like a punch. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you like being the hero. The guy who swoops in and saves everyone. But Daniel doesn't need saving, Dad. He's successful on his own merits. Merits I paid for. God, do you hear yourself? Everything has to be about you. About what you did, what you sacrificed, how hard you worked. Well, congratulations. You built buildings. You were a foreman. You're very proud of your calloused hands and your union card. But some of us want more than that. Some of us want to be more than just laborers. The string quartet stopped playing. People were starting to look. Richard. I kept my voice low, steady. I'm going to walk away now. I'm going to find Daniel, congratulate him properly, and then I'm going to leave. You can tell the Ashfords whatever story you want about me. You can tell them I'm senile, or poor, or an embarrassment. Whatever helps you sleep at night. I turned to go. Richard grabbed my arm. Dad, wait. I'm sorry. I didn't mean, yes, you did. I found Daniel by the gift table. He was laughing with Emma, opening envelopes. When he saw me, he waved me over. Grandpa, you have to see this. The Ashfords got me Danny, I need to talk to you for a second. Alone. Emma squeezed his hand and stepped away. Daniel looked concerned. Everything okay? The card I gave you. Can I see it? He pulled it from the pile. Sure. I was going to read it later. With all the others. I took it gently from his hands. Inside was the check. $75,000. Made out to Cornell University. The final payment on a debt I'd been paying down for 4 years. $15,000 at a time. Did your father tell you who was paying for Cornell? Daniel's smile faltered. Dad said, I said he'd taken care of it. That I didn't need to worry about loans. Did he say how? I assumed he'd saved up. Or maybe taken out a loan himself. He never really explained. Just said it was handled. I looked at my grandson. 22 years old. Brilliant. Kind. Starting a job at a tech company in Seattle next month. Making more money than I'd ever made in my life. And he had no idea. Your grandfather paid for it, I said. All 4 years. $75,000 total. Daniel stared at the check. I don't. Why didn't anyone tell me? Your father didn't want you to know. But why? I didn't have a good answer for that. Or maybe I did. But it wasn't mine to share. Danny, I want you to have this. It's yours. But I want you to know where it came from. Not because I need credit, but because I need you to understand something. Money doesn't make you better than anyone. Education doesn't make you better. What makes you better is how you treat people. How you honor the people who helped you get where you are. His eyes were wet. Grandpa, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I know you didn't. I hugged him. I'm proud of you, Danny. So proud. And I'm proud I could help. Your grandmother would have been proud too. When I let go, Richard was standing behind me. Dad, please don't. I'm leaving now. I turned to walk away. What about the other thing? Richard's voice was sharp. I stopped. What other thing? The down payment. For the house. You promised Daniel $100,000 for a house down payment when he got his first real job. I'd forgotten about that. A promise I'd made when Daniel was 18. drunk on the idea of Cornell acceptance letters and bright futures. I'll think about it. You promised, and I keep my promises, Richard. Unlike some people, I walked out through the French doors, across the terrace, through the parking lot. My truck was in the back corner. Old habits. Always park where you won't block anyone in. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time. My hands were shaking, not from anger, from something deeper. Disappointment, grief, the realization that my son was ashamed of me. I drove home in silence. No radio. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of my own breathing. My house was quiet. Linda had been gone 3 years now, but I still expected to see her in the kitchen, making tea, asking me how the party went. I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey instead and sat at the kitchen table. The checkbook was in the drawer where I always kept it. I flipped through the register. Every payment to Cornell was there. $15,000 in August, 4 years running. $15,000 in January, same, like clockwork. Below that, in my messy handwriting, was a note. Daniel House Fund, $100,000. Promised June, 2025. I'd been saving for it. 10 years, $10,000 a year, put aside in a separate account earning interest. I'd wanted Daniel to have something his father never had, a head start. No 30-year mortgage hanging over his life. No sleepless nights wondering how to make the payment. The phone rang. I ignored it. It rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. Dad, we need to talk. Richard's voice was tight. I don't think we do. You can't just walk out of Daniel's party like that. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. I didn't say a word to anyone except you and Daniel. You made a scene. I had a private conversation with my grandson. If that's a scene, I don't know what to tell you. Silence on the line. Then, are you still going to give Daniel the down payment? There it was. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Just concern about money. I need to think about it. You promised him. I promised a lot of things, Richard. I promised to pay for his college, which I did. I promised to be there for his graduation, which I tried to do. Until you made it clear I wasn't wanted. That's not fair. What's not fair is lying to your son about who paid for his education. What's not fair is being ashamed of your own father. I'm not ashamed of you. Then what do you call it? More silence. I call it protecting my reputation, Richard finally said. I call it trying to build something better than what I had. You had a father who loved you, who worked himself into the ground to make sure you had opportunities. What's better than that? A father who didn't have to work himself into the ground. A father who had enough money that he didn't have to choose between paying the mortgage and buying new school clothes. A father who could take vacations and didn't smell like concrete dust when he came home. The words landed like stones. I'd known Richard resented the long hours, the missed school plays, the times I'd been too exhausted to throw a ball in the backyard. But I hadn't known he was ashamed. I did the best I could, I said quietly. I know. And it wasn't enough. He hung up. I sat there for a long time. Whiskey untouched. Phone still in my hand. 3 generations of Morrisons. My father, the factory worker who drank too much and barely spoke. Me, the construction worker who tried too hard and never felt like enough. Richard, the financial advisor who wanted to be someone else. And Daniel, brilliant Daniel, caught in the middle of it all. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Tom Hendricks. We'd gone to high school together, back when Carter Valley had a steel mill and a future. Bob, good to hear from you. What can I do for you? I need to set up a trust. Okay. For who? My grandson, Daniel Morrison. I want to put $100,000 in it. He can access it when he turns 25. Not when he buys a house? No. When he turns 25. 3 years from now. By then, he'll know what he really wants. Not what his father wants, or what his girlfriend's parents think he should want. What he wants. Tom was quiet for a moment. This, about the graduation party? Small towns. Everyone knows everything. Word travels fast. My niece was there. Said there was some tension. You could say that. Bob, you sure about this? Putting the money in trust, instead of just giving it to him? I'm sure. And Tom, I want it structured so that Richard can't touch it, can't borrow against it, can't use it as collateral. It's Daniel's. Only Daniel's. That's going to upset your son. He's already upset with me. Might as well make it count. The paperwork took 2 weeks. In that time, Richard called 3 times. I didn't answer. Daniel called too. I did answer that. Grandpa, Dad's really angry. I know. He said you're punishing him. I'm not punishing anyone, Danny. I'm making sure the money I set aside for you goes to you. The way it was always meant to. He says you promised it when I got my first job. I did. And you'll get it. In 3 years. Why 3 years? Because you're 22. You're about to move across the country and start a whole new life. 3 years from now, you'll know whether you want to buy a house in Seattle, or if you want to move somewhere else. Whether you want to settle down with Emma, or if you'll meet someone new. Whether you want to use that money for a house, or a business, or something else entirely. Dad says you're trying to control me. I'm trying to protect you. There's a difference. He was quiet. Then, did you really pay for all of Cornell? Yes. Dad told me yesterday. He said you'd probably throw it in my face eventually, and he wanted me to hear it from him first. Throw it in his face, like it was a weapon. Danny, I don't want anything from you. Not gratitude, not payback, nothing. I did it because I love you, because you're my grandson, and you earned that education, and I was proud to help you get it. I wish I'd known. Why? So I could have said thank you. So I could have worked harder. So I could have. You did work hard. You graduated summa cum laude. You got a job at one of the best companies in Seattle. You did everything right. You don't owe me anything. I heard him crying. Quiet. Trying to hide it. Grandpa, I'm sorry Dad was like that at the party. About the blue-collar thing. I didn't know he felt that way. It's okay. It's not okay. You're the best man I know. You taught me how to change a tire and how to fix a leaky faucet and how to build a bookshelf. Dad never taught me any of that. He was always too busy, or too tired, or just not interested. He had his own way of being a father. Yeah. By pretending you didn't exist. The weeks turned into months. Summer came. Daniel moved to Seattle. Richard stopped calling. I heard through the grapevine that he'd lost the Ashford account. Charles Ashford had moved his portfolio to a bigger firm in the city. Richard's partnership opportunity evaporated. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. In September, Daniel came home for a weekend. He showed up at my house on a Saturday morning with coffee and bagels. Thought we could hang out, he said. Like old times. We spent the day in my garage, building a coffee table for his new apartment. He'd bought the wood and the plans. All we needed were tools and time. As we worked, he talked about Seattle, about his job, his apartment, the mountains, about Emma, who'd stayed in New York to finish law school. They were trying long distance, but it was hard. I don't know if it's going to work, he admitted, sanding down a rough edge. Her parents hate that I'm so far away. They keep talking about how I should have taken the job in Manhattan, stayed close to home. What do you want? I like Seattle. I like my job. I like who I'm becoming out there. Then that's what matters. He looked at me. Did you ever regret it? Working construction instead of going to a 4-year school? Getting some fancy degree? Never. I liked the work. Liked seeing something real at the end of the day. A building that wasn't there in the morning, standing tall by sunset. You can't beat that feeling. Dad hated it. I know. He used to tell me stories about how you'd come home dirty, too tired to play catch. How you missed his baseball games because you had to work overtime. That's all true. He made it sound like you didn't care. I cared. But I also had to keep the lights on. Your grandmother was sick a lot back then. Medical bills. I did what I had to do. Daniel was quiet for a while, measuring twice, cutting once, the way I'd taught him. The trust fund, he said finally. Dad told me about it. He's really angry. I figured. He said you're manipulating me, trying to turn me against him. Do you believe that? No. I think you're trying to give me a choice, something Dad never had. Smart kid. Smarter than I'd been at 22. When I turned 25, Daniel said, I'm going to use some of that money to take you on a trip. Wherever you want to go. Alaska, maybe. You always talked about wanting to see Alaska. You don't have to do that. I know. But I want to. You've given me so much, Grandpa. More than money. You taught me what it means to be a good man. To work hard. To be proud of who you are. No matter what anyone else thinks. I had to look away. Pretend I was checking the angle on a joint. Your father's a good man too, I said. He's just lost his way a little. Have you talked to him? Not since the party. You should. He won't admit it, but I think he misses you. Maybe. Or maybe Richard was just fine without his blue-collar father and his embarrassing stories. That night, after Daniel left, I sat on my porch with a beer and thought about what it means to leave a legacy. Richard thought it was money, status, connections. Daniel thought it was skills and values and time spent together. I thought maybe it was simpler than both of those things. Maybe it was just showing up, being there, doing the work, even when it was hard, even when you were tired, even when people looked down on you for it. The phone rang. Late. Almost 11. Dad? Richard's voice. Hoarse. Like he'd been crying. I'm here. I lost the house. The bank foreclosed. I'm moving into an apartment next week. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're probably glad. Proof that I failed. Richard, I never wanted you to fail. Then why did you humiliate me at Daniel's party? Why did you put that money in a trust where I couldn't touch it? Because it was never yours to touch. It was Daniel's. I needed it. For what? To impress people who don't care about you? To keep up an image that's bankrupting you? Silence. Then, I don't know how to do this, Dad. I don't know how to be broke. How to start over. You start by telling the truth. To yourself. To Daniel. To me. The truth is, I'm ashamed. Of everything. The divorce. The foreclosure. The fact that I'm 42 years old and I don't have anything to show for it except debt and a son who got into Cornell because his grandfather paid for it. You have a son who loves you. Who's brilliant and kind and successful. That's what you have to show for it. I didn't do any of that. You did. I paid tuition, Richard. You raised him. You were there for soccer games and school plays and midnight talks about girls and futures. That was you. That was all you. More silence. Longer this time. I'm sorry, Richard finally said. For what I said at the party. For being ashamed. For all of it. I know. Do you forgive me? Did I? I wasn't sure. Forgiveness felt too big, too complicated. But maybe it wasn't about forgiveness. Maybe it was about understanding. About seeing my son not as the person I wanted him to be, but as the person he was. Flawed. Struggling. Human. Come over tomorrow, I said. We'll have dinner. Talk. Okay. And Richard? Bring your old work boots if you still have them. Why? Because my deck needs rebuilding, and I could use the help. And because sometimes the best thing you can do when you're lost is get your hands dirty and build something real. He laughed. Soft, but real. I'll see you tomorrow, Dad. I hung up and looked out at the street. Same houses I'd looked at for 40 years. Same porch I'd built with my own hands. Same life I'd lived. One day at a time. One paycheck at a time. One promise kept at a time. I wasn't rich. I wasn't fancy. I didn't summer in the Hamptons or winter in Aspen, but I was here. And my family knew it. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything.